Some people live on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil. Others, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel. You may know me from the cases I've covered as a lifelong crime reporter and the stories I've told about law enforcement and crime across Mississippi. Along with my co-hosts, Nicole Crowell and Amanda Johansson, we've seen both the best and the worst of human nature. We believe there's no greater responsibility than telling the stories of the men and women who pursue the truth, who hunt the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who piece together some of the most significant investigations of our time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on Investigation Homicide. We are excited to be here today. Amanda's with me. Amanda, how are you?
Hi, everyone. I'm good.
Good. Today been crazy or not?
No, today's been kind of chill. All the guys were out of the office for SWAT training, so Thursdays are usually my day to just be in the office with peace and quiet.
Sure. As you guys know, Amanda is a detective at Clinton Police Department. Before we get started, I want to thank Southern Connection for sponsoring Investigation Homicide, making this possible, and we are just so grateful for them. So if you go by Southern Connection, make sure and tell them that you saw their commercial and that you enjoy watching us, because we enjoy having them on. Our guest today, we're excited about this topic. We've got a case to discuss and kind of what it means to you as a Mississippian, as a gun owner. But first, we're going to talk about the case. I've got Copiah County Sheriff Byron Swilley with me. Sheriff Swilley, how's it going today?
Everything's good this evening. Thank you.
Good, good. So you and I met probably, I can't remember when, but you were at Hazelhurst Police Department, I think. I think that's when it was. Walk us through your career. How did you get to where you are now as the Sheriff of Copiah County?
Okay. I started my law enforcement career in Hazelhurst, the city of Hazelhurst Police Department, in 2001. Kind of worked my way through the ranks, from patrol to investigator and to the chief. Was fortunate enough and blessed enough to stay in the city of Hazelhurst as the chief for 13 years. And in 2019, decided to run for sheriff of Copiah County, and I'm in my second term as sheriff of Copiah County. All of my law enforcement experience and background have been all in Copiah County.
Sure. Now, I went to school in Copiah County. I went to high school at Copiah Academy and lived in Hazelhurst for a while as a high school kid. So it was kind of one of those things, like somehow I always saw you guys as my home people. So I'm excited to have you here for that. Tonight, we're going to talk about this case that I remember well, but I couldn't find it when I searched it at first because it was just such an odd case. There were so many pieces to figure out. It was in 2021. You had a shooting in your county. Walk us through what happened on the day of April 23rd, 2021.
Well, the Copiah County Sheriff Office received a call, and the caller stated that requested a deputy. That it was a victim or a person with a gunshot wound. And so once the deputies arrived on scene, they realized that the caller was the actual shooter. And so prior to that, on April the 22nd, the property owner contacted the sheriff's office in reference of having some theft on his property, and so he shared with the deputies that he was going to start coming down a little bit more. I think he may have been from the Hinds County area, so he was going to start coming to his property more because several vehicles was on the property, and so he was receiving several items stolen from vehicles on his property. And so the next morning, which we discussing now, the 23rd. Two individuals pulled on to his property, and he was trying to. He approached and tried to get them to stop, and they wouldn't. So he shot into the vehicle. It was two individuals in the vehicle, a driver and a passenger. But during the time that the officers or deputies was gathering the information, they learned from the passenger of the vehicle that they had been on the property several times, and they had a friend that had given them or told them that that property they had permission to be on the property, and so they was going on the property often. Stealing different items or taking different items, catalytic converters off of vehicles, and they was sharing the money with the one that was giving them permission to be on the property.
So you had a guy that was saying that, yeah, friends, y'all can go out to my property. He's saying that this is his property. Get whatever you want, go sell it and bring me the money. But it wasn't his property.
Correct.
Okay. Well, and Amanda, do you guys deal with a lot of catalytic converter stuff? I know that's a big thing right now.
We haven't had any cases recently. Fingers crossed it doesn't start popping back up. But that is a trend. Catalytic converters, I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but they house platinum. And so when you sell them, they're worth a lot of money. And you can just, take a Sawzall and cut them off the bottom of a vehicle, and no one knows they're gone until they go to crank their vehicle, and it sounds horrible when they crank it.
Now, Sheriff, was this something were y'all seeing this kind of crime in other places in the county at the time? Was this isolated were these guys the only ones operating, or what was the situation at that time? Do you remember?
On this particular case, I think it was isolated to that particular location, but we, prior to that, a few months, we had several church vans that was experiencing the same type of coming in the Sunday morning, cranking the vehicles up, and of course you'll learn real quick that something wrong. And so several churches had reported that they had the same type problems.
And of course, I'm just like everybody. I try to connect everything. It wasn't these guys doing that, was it?
Not to our knowledge, no.
So what happens after you've got a situation now where you've got this shooting and you've got somebody gravely injured, and you've got a landowner that kind of, in his mind, he's protecting his property. He doesn't, so what do you do as law enforcement? How do you deal with the DA? What happens at this point in the case?
Well, prior to April the 23rd, we had something similar happen. And so I considered that in mind. And the factors of the case, other than the two individuals trespassing, that was ultimately the crime that had been committed. And so the individual, the property owner, like you're saying, in his mind, felt like he was protecting his property. But and we have several Mississippians and ones particularly in Copiah County, some people just feel like if someone in your yard or on your land that they have a right to, of course, protect it, but could also commit another serious injury or kill someone. That's just the way they feel about it.
Sure. Well, and not long ago, we had a situation, a series of situations down in the Lawrence, Simpson, Covington County area where people were shooting at children who were rolling their houses. And that was a big deal at the time. Amanda, you were going to say something too.
Yeah. Can you paint a picture of the property so that our listeners have a better understanding? Is this just like land that vehicles are parked on? Is there a house on it? What are we talking?
Junkyard.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that it was actually a junkyard, but it's down a one-way road, of course, in the county. And once you come to the end of this lane, it's a small property with several old vehicles on it.
So no like house or shed or anything like that?
I think in this particular neighborhood, you have to pass a couple of houses before you get to the end of the property where this address that we're discussing.
Okay, got you.
And you said the landowner was sitting in one of the vehicles waiting on them, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So you guys, at some point, you've got to arrest the trespassers or the one that is not shot, right? And then you arrest the homeowner or landowner.
Yes. We arrest the passenger of the vehicle, and we also arrested we discussed it, and we also arrested the property owner.
What are the charges in both of those cases at that time?
The passenger, he was charged with trespassing, and at that time, the victim in the case, he was still responsive, and so he was charged. The property owner was charged with aggravated assault at that time.
You said the victim was still responsive at that point.
Yes.
Okay.
It was serious.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, realize pretty quickly he was seriously injured.
Sure. Well, a headshot's gonna, and they all do weird, different things. That's why I was curious about that.
Yes.
So, okay. So now, fast forward a week or two, our victim dies. What happens next?
On May the 7th, the victim died, and then we immediately upgraded our charges on the property owner to murder.
Now, what's the conversation like with the property owner during this? Did he understand what was going on and why he wasn't, why he was in trouble?
I want to say that we attempted to interview him, and of course he requested counsel. But he made a statement on in his mind why he felt that he was protecting his property. Matter of fact, when it first happened, he made a statement to the deputy. Of course, on what happened and why his actions, why he took the actions to discharge his firearm.
Amanda, do you guys see that sometimes? Do y'all have that? I feel like I've written so many stories that have covered this same kind of thing. Do y'all see that often in Clinton where people have a misunderstanding of how that works?
We get people that call or they ask for an officer to come out and they just ask questions, and we have to explain to them that you have to be actually in fear for your life. There has to be certain criteria that's met in order for Castle Doctrine to actually be the little catch-all of you don't get in trouble.
Right.
But yeah, I do think that there's a big misunderstanding that if someone is standing on my property, I get to shoot them and I'm in the right. And we're
Right.
like, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Right. Right. Well, and that's something that I feel like I have written about through the years. While we're talking about this part of it, I'll bring up there was a case in Rankin County several years ago where a young man took an Uber. He happened to be African American. The Uber took him to a house he thought was his friend's in a white neighborhood. He knocks on the door at 3 a.m. and the owner meets him at the door with his gun. Forces him to sit on sit on my porch. He didn't shoot at him, luckily, and made him call the Uber, get the Uber to come back. But what was interesting is the sheriff put out a press release and just said thank you to this homeowner for not doing anything rash. And the comments all over the internet were nuts about how this kid would have got shot if he had come to my house. He better not show up on my porch, this kind of stuff. And it was just the bloodthirsty tone of it was just shocked me. And since then, I've noticed that's kind of how this conversation tends to go. So I know that had to be, especially you've had other cases, and at this time there was another high-profile one going on in Copiah County at the same time. You've had those cases, and you have to feel like you're a little bit in the line of fire when you're dealing with this issue, even though the law is fairly black and white, but people's emotions are so high on it.
Yes. It's been a couple of times now we have experienced cases similar to this one. And, of course, just ones that's looking at it from the outside, looking at that a victim that could be a victim at the time, that the situation could put them in a position to where they actually charged as a suspect.
Right.
And so, of course, without knowing all the factors in it, they just looking at why law enforcement arresting a victim.
Mm-hmm.
That someone come on their property or to their house and they the one that actually may be charged in it. And so you get a lot of feedback, a lot of negative comments towards that.
Sure. Well, and I'll ask both of y'all because y'all are the law enforcement officers, and it's a simple question. Obviously, I'm asking it for the answer. But why is it important that we don't just shoot people on our land? Like, you're on my land, didn't you ask for it? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing, if someone on your property that shouldn't be, and if you don't or could be putting yourself in harm's way, I think you just need to pick up the phone and call law enforcement.
Yeah.
It just is simple. Just if you want to file charges, the person know they shouldn't be there. If that's the case, file charges on them for trespassing, and hoping that it don't get into what we discussing right now. Just a simple trespassing charge, which is of course a misdemeanor.
Part of the Castle Doctrine law requires that someone be like committing a felony, or you think they're about to commit a felony. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but and like you said, the trespassing charge is a misdemeanor. But someone being on your property, unless they have been warned by a sign or you have told them not to be there before, then technically they're not trespassing. Someone has to be notified. So please put up signs if you don't want people on your property. But the escalation, I mean, how many times have you accidentally gone to the wrong store or the wrong house or walked up to a car thinking it's your car and tried to unlock it?
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine?
I've done that.
Just a genuine accident.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're faced with life-threatening issues.
And when you say it like that, it reminds me of a time I used to drive a steel gray Dodge Charger, and I was at an event out at the baseball field on Lakeland, which of course Smith Park, is that it? No, I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Smith Wills. Anyway, so I was there and I had been working all night. There had been stuff going on overnight and I'd gone to cover this event. And when I got done, and there was a lot of law enforcement there, when I got done, I walked to my car. I got in the car. It was a push button thing, and I pushed the button and it didn't work. And then I thought, what's that smell? And it was like an air freshener. I was like, and I started looking around. I was like, oh, I just got in a police car. And of course, I jump out and whatever, and they hadn't locked their door. Apparently, I didn't expect it. I mean, I don't know. But so nobody saw me. But if I was a police officer watching somebody get in my vehicle, I'd probably be like, hold up a minute. What you doing?
Yeah.
And yeah, you can make those mistakes easy.
Mm-hmm. Just
So-
like that officer not locking their door.
Yeah, that's been years ago, so nobody's in trouble, okay, JPD? So, okay, to go back to the story. So your suspect dies. I mean, your victim dies. You've had to file charges on this. What does that look like in the prosecution process? Like, how are you guys navigating this as you go? Because, again, there are some gray areas here that I'm sure the defense attorney was probably trying to talk through.
Yes, of course, once the property owner, he was charged, then you get into the preparing the case. You get into a preliminary hearing if need be, especially if a counsel involved. But with that being said, of course, you turn it over. You turn your case over to the district attorney's office, and at some point they will present it to a jury, a grand jury, and then they would make the decision on whether or not it's indicted. Mm-hmm. And so this particular case, it was actually indicted. And so you get into discovery and all of those things. And then so at some point, the property owner and his counsel, of course, he decided to plea. And so all of that's, the negotiations and all of the plea and all of that stuff, all of that is solely through the district attorney's office. So
talk to me about because policing in some places is very black and white, and in some places there are gray areas. So you guys, as you said earlier, you have these situations from time to time where you have people, say they're gonna do this if someone comes back or things like that. Um, as a human being, when you look at the situation, this is one where you can kind of see both sides of it a little bit, I would imagine. What's it like to be sitting in your chair during this?
Well, just the fact of knowing, as a law enforcement officer that carry a weapon every day, that's the last thing that's on my mind. Me particularly, I'm just talking about me. That you want to pull your weapon and have to discharge it. A conscience, whether just the principle of having to injure somebody or take someone's life. Depending on the situation. That's something that every individual different. And so just that situation alone, knowing that what's involved in that could affect you for a lifetime.
Sure.
Uh,
Well, and I think so. Amanda's heard me talk about this, and you might have seen me talk about it on my Facebook. But one thing that I have found as I've covered these crimes through my life and covered crime in general, and you guys, I know from the investigative standpoint, you don't want that on your conscience. But we live in a state where we love our guns, we love our concealed carry permits, all that kind of stuff. And there is a machismo that says, nobody better mess with me or I'll put them down, And so one day on Facebook, I was just like, you guys say that, but you don't want that. You don't want that on you. And I learned that from, law enforcement officers who have had to take that step and then have lived with it. How do you think either one of you can answer this, how do you think we educate our people to understand like a human life? It's not that easy, just dispatch it and be done. Like it's not just about the legal charges, it's about what you carry for the rest of your life.
I think that as law enforcement, we're not trained to quote unquote kill.
Right.
We're trained to stop the threat. And most of the time, stopping the threat means that someone's life gets ended if we're using our firearms. But that mentality is also coupled with we are trained to survive. So it's not that we're trained to pull our gun and shoot at the threat. There's already a threat presenting itself, and it's already threatening our lives. So it is a self-defense type of a situation, but I think that for civilians who don't have that training, they don't have that understanding, I don't think that they consider the fact that the other person's probably going to be shooting back, or they're shooting first, and that's why you would want to shoot. They're just thinking, you're doing something that I don't like, and I'm going to defend myself, and I'm going to shoot you. And, like, that's kind of where it ends. It's almost like a video game scenario where there's like, yeah, I'm going to pull my gun, and I'm going to shoot it, and then you're going to stop doing the bad thing. And there is no thought of aftermath after that.
Sure. Sure. And Sheriff, you've been in law enforcement for quite some time. Have you noticed a difference in the way people tend to view these situations since you first got in? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. It feels like the world has changed since we were younger. Like there's less of an emphasis on the importance of human life, but that could just be from where I'm sitting.
Yes, from like you said, from in the 2000 era, as far as when I first started until now, you seeing more and more of the ones that feel like, like we've been discussing, that, you come onto my property, and you have a right to protect your property and your family to an extent. And so just not trying to allow a situation to turn out to where it's flipped on the other side of it, to where, like I said again, you're a victim, and then it end up now I'm in handcuffs.
Right.
With a situation.
Well, and I just saw a clip today from Sheriff Grady Judd down in Florida, and I think we're all fans of Sheriff Judd just because he says the thing. and then everybody gets offended, and he's just like, it is what it is, you know. One of the things that he said is they were contrasting him with a sheriff or a law enforcement officer from Canada who was like, we really don't want you to have to get shot, so please don't break into anybody's house. And then Sheriff Judd is saying, I would advise you not to break into a house in Florida because we all have our guns, and you know most of our people are going to shoot you. And that difference to me is sometimes interesting, but I think one of the things that when you hear that kind of discussion, that fuels the uneducated, and I don't want to say uneducated because everybody grew up with a gun. That's the whole thing. I've been shooting guns my whole life. I know about guns, and I have guns before anybody gets mad. But it feels like there is that cavalier attitude, and from law enforcement, you hear a whole different story. Like when the concealed carry permits, you know, when there are different changes in the legislation and that kind of thing, it's that feeling of like, well, now somebody can walk into a Walmart with their, you know, whatever gun on their hip, and that's their right. But that actually kind of alarms you guys a little bit in some capacities. Talk to me about that. What does that feel like knowing that anybody, it's hard to talk about. I don't even know the right question because yes, it's your right, but also please be responsible with it.
Yeah. The what I like to refer to as Captain Open Carry. whenever that was the big trend.
Sure.
I used to see people. I'll never forget. I had heard about someone. They were going to a hair salon, open carry, which means that you can see they carry kind of like a cop, right, right there on their hip, and they're going to get a haircut, and so they go and they sit in the hair wash station and they lean back and they close their eyes while someone is washing their hair, and your gun is right out in the open. So if something were to go wrong, they see your gun, they know who to take out so that they can get your gun. Like that's not responsible.
Right.
But on the other hand of that, the concealed carry where you don't know who is carrying. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, Lord, if something was to happen here, like, please don't let someone who has no idea how to operate their weapon because they bought it. And hopefully they went to Southern Connection and they bought their fancy firearm. And we love that. But they didn't go to the range. So they have no time with their firearm and they just put it in a fancy holster and they're just wearing it to be cool. And then they don't understand crossfire and they have no accuracy and they shoot a bystander, and that's where my mind goes. Like, please don't just let the cops do their job. You just exit in a calm fashion with everyone else.
Yeah. Well, and Sheriff, I think what she touched on is something that, you know, I think police officers, first responders, people in, you know, probably soldiers, you see that person with their head back getting shampooed, and you think of the person who's going to walk by, take that gun off them, and suddenly hold up everybody in the salon. To the person wearing it, it's like, I got my gun in case anything happens. I'm gonna take care of business. How do we? I guess I asked it a little bit earlier, but how do we educate people about how that works? Is there? I mean, do you feel like there's a way that we can make people understand that kind of threat? That like your gun being right there is also a danger to you, believe it or not.
I think, you know, of course, we educate community meetings, trying to educate your constituents or your residents, you know, of course, on safety and really, you know, the responsibilities of you know, what we discussing here today. It's just try to bring awareness to these type of situations.
Sure. So we just had a comment from former Vicksburg and Natchez Police Chief Walter Armstrong, and he said he is watching. He's one of our favorites. He's been on before.
Yeah,
And we also have a comment from Jordan Ricks, who's our favorite commenter. And he says, Sheriff, in your experience investigating cases like the one involving Jack Donald Cole and Jesse James Chapman, what is the biggest mistake armed citizens make when they decide to personally confront someone they suspect is committing a crime on their property? Have you seen a shift in the theology of the public in defense of self-property due to the prosecution or lack of that in this state in your area in particular?
With this particular case, of course, the the ones that was trespassing, they didn't pose any type of threat. It was no weapon through the investigation, no weapon found. Even the property owner didn't say anything about a weapon that was involved in this once they pulled onto the property.
So I guess my question then becomes, because I want to flip the script, because I think a lot of people could argue that this is an anti-gun podcast right now, and it's not. It's not. I have several. Obviously, you guys both have several. But so let's look at it from the other side. I know somebody, and especially as a female, I am a single female, and if I know somebody is coming on my property, I know that there's somebody who's been there. I know that they might be coming back, especially, if you've got a history of domestic violence or something like that. That's kind of a different question, because another question I want to ask you in a minute is just talk about, like, okay, so what if the landowner doesn't know that these guys don't pose a threat? So I guess let's take it from the angle of, you are honestly afraid, but it's an overarching fear. There's somebody who has been threatening me in a way that I can't put my finger on. Maybe I've seen them on my cameras, that kind of thing. What are my rights in that way?
So I think it's important to actually read the law, the verbiage, and understand what the verbiage means. And I made sure to read the law before I got here, because I wasn't certain if anything had changed since the last time I had read it. And it specifically says that you have the right to protect your dwelling or vehicle or business. And when you look at the definition, it means something that has a roof. Mm-hmm. So your land is not your dwelling. Therefore, I would interpret that as you don't have a right to shoot someone just because they came on your property. They actually have to pose a threat. And by threat, physical threat. They pull a gun, they pull a knife, they pull a bazooka, something.
They grab you, they're
something
attacking
legitimate.
you. Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know that you have the right to, quote unquote, defend your property.
Right. Well, and every now and then we come across a story where somebody has shot somebody who's breaking into their vehicle. What's that?
Just attached to what was just mentioned, if someone breaking into your vehicle or vehicle and it's no one in it, it's the same principle. If you inside of your home and someone breaking into a vehicle, you need to call law enforcement. Try to get a good description of the vehicle. Of the subject. But if, and just the opposite of that, if you inside your vehicle and someone trying to break in it on you, then we get back into what we've been discussing. But just looking outside from your dwelling, from your house, and someone breaking into your vehicle, do not give you a right to walk out on the porch and walk out and shoot them.
Sure.
The verbiage in the law that talks about the fact that you don't have to retreat, I think is the verbiage, is talking about being in your home or in your vehicle or in your business. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that someone comes on your property and you're outside, therefore you don't have to retreat. No. At that point, you have a point of exit. You can go into your home. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're safe, depending on the circumstances, and you can call law enforcement.
Right.
You don't get to escalate just because someone's on your property.
Right, just because you're macho.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because you have a gun.
Right.
And, I had a question asked in one of the community meetings. This elderly individual asked me, he said, well, look, if I'm coming onto my property and an individual coming out of my house with my TV, do I have a right? And I told him, I explained to it, I responded as no, because he's leaving.
And he's got both hands on his TV, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he just really had a problem, a concern with that,
Sure.
But based on all of the things we mentioning now, just because of, you would think looking at this individual coming out of your house and broke in your house, leaving with items from your house, you have a right.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
Well, and I think too, again, to kind of flip the script just a minute, we should also talk about like when somebody breaks into your house, that is a big violation. I mean, I feel like to someone whose home has been broken into, you feel very vulnerable. You feel very, it's scary because you don't know what's coming next. Even if you get home and they are long gone, it's still that feeling of what just happened? Am I safe? That kind of thing. So we're not trying to take that away from you if you find yourself in a situation where you've been the victim of a crime. So let's talk about, when it comes down to it, we've seen cases where there have been self-defense shootings that were clearly that. I guess we've kind of talked about it, but one of the things that I've done is I'm a member of the USCCA, the U.S. Concealed Carry something of America. Sorry, I should know that. Anyway, but the thing is, there are classes you can take through that. There's actually it hooks you up with the ability up to a certain amount to have an attorney that specializes in Second Amendment law that will protect you if you in fact shoot somebody in self-defense. And if it's one of these situations, but if you did it wrong, then they're not going to do that. And so a lot of this education is kind of what they're doing out at they're doing it out at Boondocks Training Academy. That's where I learned it. But it's kind of one of those things that you can look into and find, and it's not that hard. So if this is a subject that's making you feel some kind of way, get on the internet, ask ChatGPT, call somebody, talk to the sheriff, talk to Amanda, because there's ways to protect yourself without having to put yourself in a bad situation. So, Sheriff, you said you've been having town halls where people ask about this kind of thing. Talk to me about the education that you're doing on this in your community.
Every quarter I have chat with the sheriff, and that's this subject, this topic, it always come up from somebody, and so every opportunity that I have to get the message out about particularly trespassing and all of that comes with whether or not you have a right to discharge your firearm or what have you. I like to get that message out and let the residents, the public, the community know and try to educate as it relates to this topic. I want to I feel like it's part of my responsibility to make sure that the residents understand, because all of us going to be involved if something or when something happen like this.
Mm-hmm.
All the moving parts, the law enforcement, the person that's involved, the witness, all of that's going to be involved if and when it happens.
Sure. Now, before we go any further, I want to take a break and throw it back out to Southern Connection. Let's hear from them again.
That an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
And just to make sure you know, Southern Connection has the Glock 19X in. At this point, they're getting some in stock and taking names for a list. So if that's something you're interested in, give them a call, get your name on the list. If they don't have them in stock, they'll have more soon, and you'll be on the list for one. So that's Southern Connection in Ridgeland. They are a police supply, first responder supply store. Get your equipment there, and they will make sure that as best they can, they'll get you home safe. So let's come back to this. Sheriff, do you feel like we live in a state where, we are familiar with our guns, where, it's kind of a second nature. I feel like there are times that this particular crime we're talking about where you have shot somebody under the Castle Doctrine, you think, it's sometimes they don't get prosecuted. Sometimes they don't get indicted. Do you feel like that makes people feel a little more safe about doing these kind of things or talking about doing them?
Well, I think that, of course, I think when this situation happened, I think it's a decision have to be made at that time on how do we move forward, because everybody there with mixed feelings on what should happen, and of course, ultimately the chief or the sheriff or whoever there is going to have to make that decision, because you want to be you want to make sure that the law apply, and you want to make sure that it's fair to everybody that's involved under the circumstances.
Well, and I think we talked about it. You and I talked before we got on the air, and we've talked at length at different times about different cases like this. And what you find so many times is that the person who pulls the trigger many times is just like, well, y'all are cops, so it's just like me. You know, I was gonna say just like you and me, but just somebody that had the wrong impression of how this law worked, and so in this case, you probably got to know the shooter a little bit, because didn't he do some community service at the sheriff's department?
Yes, he ended up, and that was part of the sentencing that he it was 500 hours of community service, and of course he completed that right at the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
So he was in and out of the sheriff's office, and worked every day until he worked his 500 hours.
And he wasn't some evil bad dude. He was just a guy that
No,
pulled a
not
trigger.
at all. Just whatever you asked him, very respectful every day.
And I say that because it could happen to anybody that is not aware of how this law works.
Yeah, and you spoke on how this guy actually called law enforcement to initially report the theft of things from his property. So presumably he was a law-abiding citizen and thought that he was abiding the law whenever he was protecting his property, as he would say. So yeah, it was just a undereducation about the law, and just a bad decision. Doesn't make him a bad person.
Right.
So.
Well, and let's contrast that. So it's Halloween time. It's football season. You have a bunch of 15-year-olds that show up in your yard with toilet paper. And we had that. I mentioned it earlier. This year there were several situations where homeowners either took shots at these kids or threatened to take shots at the kids, and then the people on Facebook overwhelmingly backed them. In your mind, is there a difference between the guy? I mean, I realize by the law it's all the same, but you're shooting at kids. What's wrong with that?
I wouldn't want to be the one that's in front of a jury
Right.
with that situation. I just the fact of kids being kids don't make it right, going and trespassing on people's property. But making threats or thinking about doing bodily harm or killing one of them, shooting one of them, or however, that's not the right ideal. That's not the right action, and it could cost you severely.
Yeah.
It could really cause a problem, and you could be charged, and could, if you found guilty, could be facing prison time, just on something that just someone trespassing again on your property.
Because you didn't want to clean up some toilet paper.
Yeah, just let it rain.
Right.
The toilet paper will dissolve. It's not that serious.
Right. Or there's that trick where you set it on fire and it actually just burns right out of the tree.
Yeah.
I actually saw that happen for the first time a couple of years ago. I mean, when I was rolling yards, I don't think I knew that. But that is one thing that has changed since I was a kid, was if you didn't get your yard rolled, it meant that you were a loser. So you kind of hoped that somebody rolled your yard. Sounds like it's a little different out there now.
I just want to know where these kids are getting this money to buy toilet paper, because toilet paper is expensive.
Not in the COVID era. Well, okay. Okay, so as we kind of wrap this up, Sheriff, what else about this case do you feel like people need to know?
I think, you know, two sides to it. You know, try not to allow yourself to get tunnel vision in a situation to where you make a decision that you will have to face the rest of your life. If you know, self-control. Um, Even if you think you're right, just don't react as soon as you think about making a decision on something like I said that could cost you something to be on your record the rest of your life.
Sure.
You know?
Well, and this is a controversial way to look at it, but at one point on one of my stories, I had a comment from a guy that I recognized his comment from another story. And so on one story where there had been a shooting and it was a gang involved thing and there was a disrespect situation going on, and he was making light of, you disrespected me, so I'm gonna shoot you. And then I recognized that name as commenting, well, you better not come on my property, I'm gonna shoot you, type thing. And I didn't get into it to point out that it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You know, only one of them we kind of say, I mean, we've built this culture around like, well, if they're on your land, you know, you can protect yourself. But it's the same thing. Amanda, any other thoughts on this subject? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just encourage everyone who carries a gun or is thinking about carrying a gun, do your research. Go to reliable resources. The Secretary of State website has a link to LexisNexis, which is an up-to-date, like to the minute of the giant, what we in law enforcement call as the Bible, the big law book. And this statute is justifiable homicide. So it is 97.315. And this section is, I think, E. E would be the section that y'all would want to look at. Read it. Try and understand it. And then go to the case law, because it's not just the law. You have to look at the cases that set the precedents for what judges are going to use to convict or not convict. And this case, I presume, is going to fall under that precedence that will be used from here forever and ever, amen, as, you know, a way of determining how they're going to convict, how they're going to sentence. Y'all have to educate yourself about this kind of stuff, because this is life and death, literally, and it doesn't matter how much you value your property. Your property is not more valuable than life.
Right. Well, and I there's one thing I forgot to ask you about. So in this story, we have forgotten to wrap up the story on one other person. The sleazy liar who decided it'd be cool to talk his friends into stealing a bunch of catalytic converters on some land that wasn't his and said, bring back the money. What happened to him?
He was charged
Good.
in this, and actually on the unrelated charges. I think he may be still incarcerated, but he never got out from that charge either. So I'm almost positive he was charged in it also.
Sure. Well, and in that, I mean, it feels like he should have been, because in the end, if they would have known maybe that wasn't his land, they might not have been in that situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening and watching tonight. We really appreciate you being here. Again, just know your gun laws. None of this has been our opinion. All of it, well, I mean, some of it probably was, but what we're giving you here is fact on what these laws are about. We just want to make sure you know for your safety. We appreciate you being here. You can follow us on all the platforms, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc. Thanks for being here. Shop at Southern Connection. Tell them you heard it on Investigation Homicide. Have a great night.